Hello everyone, Rick on Number here to talk about what is currently my favorite Hoyoverse game and gacha game, Zenless Zone Zero. I think this is Hoyoverse at their best so far, utilizing a lot of what they learned from the previous games and putting them in a fun, stylish, and streamlined gaming experience. This game is energetic and flashy, bursting with personality between its great animations and models, its unique world, and its compelling stories. It does have some flaws, but I don't believe them or the more fan-servicey aspects bring the game down drastically. Now, please remember this is just my opinion and how I feel at the moment, especially with games like these that can drastically change over time, especially when you play them over a long period of time. You can have a lot of thoughts. It's honestly a little hard to really condense everything down and get myself to something more satisfying, but this is what I ended up with for how I feel at the moment. And I will be making comparisons to Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail throughout this, as they are solid reference points that I can make. Many players of Hoyoverse games have at least tried one of these two, if not both of them, such as myself, and they have a lot of overlap alongside their differences. The overall design of them as a gacha game is pretty much the exact same overall. I played Genshin for about 4 years, Star Rail for about 6 months, and Zenless since about a month or so into the game, I started playing from there. To start, I feel Zenless is the most friendly of the Hoyoverse games for the average person when it comes to game design, and is great as a game overall for more casual video game players while still providing some challenging content for players who want higher difficulty. Zenless being designed as a hack and slash that appeals to more casual gamers is a big success for me. I don't really like hack and slash type action games, particularly ones that demand meticulous timing on actions like dodging, parrying, and stuff like that. I've tried Souls-likes in that overall genre, and I've rarely been able to enjoy them. I just don't enjoy games that require that little dedication and repetition to learning patterns, timing, and stuff like that. Zenless's gameplay has really clicked with me. It is a bit of a button masher, but I don't think it's that bad when it comes to that. I like the 3-person team plus Bang Boo build as something both similar and different to Genshin and Star Rail. I'm not going to go super in depth into all the mechanical details of Zenless, but I find its system fun, even as someone who tends to not play these types of games. Out of the 3 games, Star Rail's turn-based combat is actually my favorite type of gameplay overall when it comes to the general style. But with Star Rail, I felt it got repetitive very fast, and fights go on too long, and I just didn't enjoy the mechanics there enough. While with Zenless, I feel there is more room to experiment and play how you want. It has team archetypes and stuff like that, but there is a solid amount of diversity that you can run, and most of the characters in the game that are available to you are at least decent. It does have those mechanics that can be frustrating to me, like I previously mentioned, with parrying and dodging, but I generally find the difficulty in general gameplay and harder content to hit the right spot for me. I found myself enjoying Shiyu Defense far more than I expected to, which is its version of Spiral Abyss from Genshin. These are the standard hard modes that give you rewards with each reset in each of these games. This too is very well streamlined and improved in Zenless. The main thing that makes Shiyu better is that you don't have to do all the later stages in one run. It was so frustrating in Abyss to be failing at the very last stage, but having to do the earlier stages that I've already been time and time again. It feels like a waste of time, and it just gets me even more frustrated. This is a big pet peeve with me in gaming. The point of repetition is to help you practice things that you are failing at, so that helps you get better. When I'm already good at earlier stages, repeating them does not really help me anymore. In Shiyu, I just repeat the stages that I need to. This makes me much more willing to engage with it, and I actually have fun doing it. Zenless's roguelike mode, Hollow Zero, is most similar to Star Rail's simulated universe, and again, I like Zenless's much better. What makes these modes really work well is that they present you with challenges, but they give you unique rewards and abilities that you get throughout. They can truly make you feel really powerful and give you plenty of room for experimentation and strategy. I'm a bigger fan of Lost Void than Withered Domain. My favorite thing out of all of them, though, has to be Shadow Operation. These are Hollow Zero runs that have a specific theme. presenting unique challenges but also unique rewards. And what's especially cool about Zenless's roguelike mode is that you get special abilities for many of the characters in the game that can radically change how they play. Like Astra can go from a healing support unit that really just sits on field to shooting a laser that does a ton of damage. I really enjoy both of these difficult modes, and I did not grow tired of them, so far at least, the way that I did their counterparts in Genshin and Star Rail. For people who want the game to be really hard, there is still content for you, some of which does not work for me. Simulated Battle Trial requires you to strategically pick your characters and leaves very little room for error. I really do not like it at all for how punishing the mode is when you actually get to the harder stages, where even one attack can take away most of your HP. But it seems like exactly the type of thing that other people like, especially for people who are like those more Souls-likes and really hard hack and slashes and stuff like that. You keep going up in difficulty from 1 all the way to 99. If you want really hard difficulty that demands perfection, Zenless offers that too. And even though I don't really enjoy it that much, because there is a decent amount of game modes and I really like things like Shiyu Defense and Hollow Zero, I really don't mind so much that I don't enjoy it, especially since the way they design the rewards, it does stop at a certain point, so I don't feel like you don't have to get to 999. I don't feel compelled to do that, so the people who want to can do it, people like me don't have to. This may just be a me thing, but moving on to Deadly Assault, I think is a big step up above Shiyu in terms of difficulty, and I also do not really like it. It's basically 3 separate boss battles that you have to share all your characters between. I do not like how it is designed. You fight each boss for 3 minutes until the timer runs out, with you trying to do as much damage as possible. It's basically a DPS check. I do not enjoy this just being a loop of fighting the same thing for a time period. And what doesn't help is that the bosses have rarely changed if they have at all, and they have overlapping weaknesses that often make a more diverse account actually kind of feel like a weakness when it should be the opposite. I really wish they changed the bosses up more often, as the game has a lot of them, they just don't really put them in here. Some of the bosses I dislike a lot, but others I do like when it comes to the overall bosses in the game. But at this exact moment, 2 of the 3 bosses have the exact same weaknesses and resistances. Like, there's only 3 bosses. You got multiple elements. Why are 2 of the 3 weak to the exact same things? That just makes it so much harder to team build for them, and that's not really my fault, just because I don't want to pull every single ice character, every single electric character. Overall, I feel like the game really doesn't compel you to feel like you need to pull everything. Personally, I don't think it pressures you that much, but this is like the one thing where it kind of did. Like, if they make all the 2 or 3 bosses weak to electric, I kind of just have Haramasa. So that kind of sucks for me that I didn't pull for the premium version of Ambi or anything like that. This can be an issue in Shiyu 2. It certainly was when they spammed electric weak enemies, but Deadly Assault is far more stagnant than that. With Shiyu, I'm much more forgiving because it resets more, and it makes sense because that's constantly resetting, that it fits the characters that are coming out then. Because if you really don't like it, then just wait for the next one. But Deadly Assault has barely changed, so it's far more frustrating. I wish they would change things up. Overall, while I may not like all of the game's hard modes, I can still see how those are appealing to other people, and I do like the ones that I really like. So I don't think it's that big of a problem. What I'd really like to talk about more is the positive of it, is that there is diversity here. Some of my friends really like Deadly Assault, for example. So it's good that I think it's appealing to a wide variety of people with its more difficult content. One more minor gameplay mechanic gripe that I can make is that with the type of game this is, you are constantly locked onto enemies during combat. Usually this isn't a problem, but sometimes trying to attack a different enemy can be difficult, and sometimes that can screw you over in things like Shield Defense where every second can matter. But that's a minor thing. Usually it's fine. Overall, I think Zenless does a good job of providing both easy and difficult content that suits a variety of players. And moving on, this game is really quick and snappy to play. It's really great. and this can be seen in all aspects of the game. This includes the world, which is pretty small and doesn't have much reason to run around in it. I can understand people disliking that there's very little exploration in the game, but what I've just said is exactly what I like about it. I enjoyed exploring Genshin Impact's big beautiful world, full of hidden things to find and puzzles to do for years, but I got seriously burnt out on exploration. Every subsequent region, I spent less time out in the world. I stopped actively collecting oculi because there were way too many of them. I got tired of having stamina a lot of the time. All of my patience for boring, repetitive puzzles was worn out. I genuinely, I think Genshin had like a permanent impact on my ability to enjoy puzzles in video games. Not because I grew impatient, but because Genshin has a ridiculous amount of puzzles that they just gave you so much of. And comparing that to Zenless. Zenless's quick, streamlined gameplay experience is exactly what I needed when it came out. I'm glad it's not full of chests or puzzles that get premium currency and constantly nag on me for not doing when I don't want to do them. I'm happy to run around the smaller and, in my opinion, well done world just when I want to. Or you do it in more natural ways, like with the story and trust events. Like the other Hoyo games, there's pretty much always minor events going on. Most of them aren't super relevant or anything to write home about, but many of them are very fun. And they can give decent rewards and usually are fun enough and don't take a super long time. You can totally skip them when you don't feel like it, but I do recommend doing them. Or at least you can master the dialogue when it gets a bit wordy, but that's not a Zenless problem, that's a Hoyoverse like text bloat problem. Though I personally usually do read them, because generally I think it's fun to read more than not. In Zenless I find myself rarely skipping dialogue, because usually the dialogue is good. And again, the other aspects of the game are very quick and snappy, so I feel like I have more time to just sit there and read. And of course we're talking about gacha games, so we've got to talk about the grind. They are well known for their grinds, including the daily ones. The daily reward system for premium currency in Zenless errands is the easiest and the most beneficial of the Hoyoverse games, in my opinion. If you want to get them, all you have to do is log in. You get coffee from Tin Master, which gives you extra energy that you can save for later or use right away. You do a scratch off card, and you at the very least, you'll get a little bit of money, or hopefully you can even get a little bit of premium currency. And then you get some free skill materials from your store. This is way faster than any other gacha game I've played. And it's stuff you would want to do anyway. You're just grabbing free materials. There's nothing pointless or time-consuming forced on you just within errands. But if you want to do other things, you can get credit for errands from doing those too, like spending your energy in combat. So if you don't feel like doing that, then just go straight to doing a quick daily grind for some kind of material, and you'll get most of your credit anyway. There is also Redo Weekly, which is like the weekly version of this. This does have some of those pointless actions that you can expect in gacha games, for the sake of getting you to do something if you want to clear the entire board, but you don't have to do that. You can get all the premium currency just from doing the previously mentioned daily activities. So again, to get the premium currency, you just need to do stuff it would be good to do anyways. You have plenty of options of things to do, and the bare minimum takes so little time and effort. This daily system really respects your time, taking up the least amount of it to get the free premium currency daily and weekly. All gacha games have a system like this to get players to log in every day. It's one of the standard techniques. But to me, this is by far the best out of the gacha games that I have played. For people who want to play casually, aka you aren't playing every single day and trying to get really good builds and stuff like that, I think it's also the easiest to play of the Hoyo games. You do not need to spend money to enjoy this game, in my opinion. You don't need optimal characters just for being the story. In part because a lot of it makes you play with the game's characters rather than your own. It doesn't feel like you need a lot of characters if you just want to play the story and pull for characters you want. You don't need to think about the meta at all for just very basic things. The materials and their grinds are also super straightforward and easy to do. Compared to Genshin and Star Rail, I find the material stages to be the fastest. which is what you want. This is not the kind of thing that should be challenging or time consuming. Building characters is so much faster than Genshin. It is not even close. And I still think it is faster than Star Rail. Star Rail already improved things a bit and moved it in this direction after Genshin, so Star Rail is already a good improvement, but I think this is another improvement that's a step above that. The game gives you a lot of materials for free through events, and the process of grinding those items is not hard. I've been able to get my new characters to a satisfactory state way faster than Genshin and a bit faster than Star Rail. One of the reasons why is because the exact number of materials you get is consistent rather than luck-based. This means there's no frustration over needing to do extra runs because of a boss who gave you really bad luck, like cough cough, Genshin. So yeah, and even just recently, I was able to get Jane. Jane's my favorite character, I'll talk a little bit more about her later. But I got all of her skills maxed out, and that really did not feel that difficult to do. Like in Genshin, that felt like a serious achievement, which, you know, you could say it made it more satisfying, but really it was just very frustrating and time consuming. This was so much better. That's not something I do all the time. I just do that for like my favorite characters. But I just want to mention that if you are someone who is just like very dedicated to, you know, your waifu, husbando, whatever, just dedicated to your favorite character, if you want to get them maxed out, I think this is the easiest one to do it. Another thing is that I mentioned before is that character stories often use the game's characters instead, which can be fun and help you feel more like you're directly in the events taking place. It also makes the story more accessible, as you don't need to build characters quite as much. But it also has a lot of segments where you can just use one or two characters and don't have a bang boo. So it results in you kind of having less to do and takes away from the core combat formula of switching characters. Especially when the game makes you play as just one character for anything that's not even just a story that can be in events too. That truly just feels like a total bun masher, and it's just not fun. This is not like a big deal, but especially because I brought up this use of characters before, I just wanted to mention it. This aspect of the game really isn't a big deal, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it does come up quite a lot. The only way that I think this game is not friendly is how complicated the stats are. Especially when we compare to Genshin, this game has multiple extra stats and values. I could not begin to tell you how you calculate optimal builds and stuff like that. People do, but I don't really look at meta stuff. When it comes to the Hoyoverse games, I've always stayed away from like truly getting into like the meta and what the highest numbers are and perfect rotations and stuff like that. I just found it didn't really increase my enjoyment of the game when it comes to these specifically. And it took me a while to fully understand everything. But you do not need to understand all these values perfectly to enjoy the game. I played for a few months before I properly got into building characters and learning how to really play better so I could do stuff like Shiyu. But as this is a Hoyoverse game, it does have the dreaded equipment. If you want optimal stats on your discs, welcome to hell. It is an awful grind that I did a lot for its equivalent in Genshin, and I swore it off a while ago because of how painful that was, and just not worth it. Building perfect equipment in any game where it's luck-based is frustrating if you want them to be optimal or perfect. Like if you want at least 80% crit rate on Miyabi, which is the quote-unquote optimal thing, without sacrificing a lot of other stats for it, you'll be grinding your butt off. I've kind of tried, like this is kind of the closest I've gone to like getting to that like serious level of grinding, and I've stopped because it's just not fun. But if you're playing casually, you do not need to stress over these values. You don't need to like go crazy about substats on disc, just get the right main stat. If you're someone like me who wants to do hard content but not try hard over it, like I'm not trying to get 9 stars every time and all that kind of stuff, I think the game is not awful. It is rough to not have an off piece like Genshin does that is a little restrictive, but the game makes this less of an issue as they hand out tuning calibrators consistently and fairly often. So unless you're a whale and someone who demands perfection on every character you have, you can pretty consistently guarantee yourself a main stat on the particular equipment you want that you're struggling to get. which means for casual players who have fewer characters and aren't doing difficult content, they're likely not going to struggle at all. I'm at the point where I'm slowly trying to give all of my characters their own dedicated set of discs. I'm at about 2/3 of my characters, and right now I have 5 tuning calibrators just sitting around. Zenless puts the main stat craftable in right away, unlike some of the others, and made the barrier to get them really not that hard, again, unlike Genshin. I've been ragging a lot on Genshin, but the fact that I played it for 4 years, it wasn't because I was addicted, it's because I genuinely enjoyed it. When it comes to weapons, the quality of free-to-play ones are pretty good, which helps a lot. Many of the signature weapons are highly beneficial and can be worth it. I pulled for 3 of them. If you have a character you're very dedicated to, kind of like me, to either that or you have a strong character, one you love, it can be whatever reason. Like I think, for example, Miyabi, if you're serious about using Miyabi, I'd say hers is probably the one I'd recommend the most. But you don't need them. They are a luxury to go for out of dedication, or if you're not interested in upcoming characters, or you have a particular character where you know you rely on them a lot for things like the difficult content, like me with Miyabi, then I think that's worth it. But again, you don't have to. Jane is my favorite character to play, and I actually still don't have her signature. I plan to get it, but I don't have it now. I still think she feels very strong. I've seen people say she's fallen off. I don't know, I still think she's really good. I have not felt strapped for pulls as someone whose spending has only been a single city fund that costs $10. So I've not had awful luck, but I would not say I've had incredible luck either. Maybe it's just been mine, but I've been happy with the characters that I managed to get as almost entirely a free-to-play. So yeah, most of the characters I'm running free-to-play weapons like the A's and below, and most of them I don't have any consolations on the premium 5-star characters outside of one on Jane. And again, I still think the characters feel great, they're fun, they're strong. So I do not think you need a whale or anything like that, or even really be a dolphin to enjoy the game. Again, I've only bought once. I still consider myself free to play because of how minor that is. But yeah, I think this game is very welcoming to people who don't want to spend money. Now we'll move on to the story. The story of Zenless overall is simpler and more low-key compared to other games like Genshin and Star Rail, in my opinion, and it kind of fits in with the world very well. Like I just said before with the world, this is exactly what I want. Overall, the story is solid. I'm not a huge fan of every story decision they've made, but overall, I think the story is good. Genshin has not managed its many overarching stories and balanced them super well, in my opinion. There's at times too much detail, too much going on to remember, too much time between things being revisited, etc. While each region's story was usually at least decent, I think Inazuma's was the worst. Sometimes the stories felt too self-contained. Sometimes it felt like each region was in a bubble, which I think is counterintuitive to a game where you're meant to run around a connected world seamlessly. Zenless does not face this issue because it's intentionally smaller. It's much more tight-knit. And with that comes a story in a world that is more cohesive to me. I like how down-to-earth it is and how immersed it is in the urban setting. I love details like the people of each area having their favorite hangout spots, everywhere has goofy mascots, local legends, stuff like that. Characters from different factions are constantly interacting with each other too, despite there being multiple locations. And just because it's not as dense or wide open in scope does not mean it lacks in gripping stories. Many of the characters' stories are very well written and emotionally gripping. This game balances goofiness and heavier content well, but overall I'd say it leans more on the lighter end. But the really dark aspects of the stories tend to really hit, like Trigger's backstory and Rina's stories were both really good. They're on different ends of like exactly what they focused on, but they were really good. They both got me to tear up a bit. There's a good variety of backstories between main story related and ones that are not as dramatic, that are kind of more low-key, slice of lifey kind of feel. Overall, I like how it's handling these things so far. Especially, I want to say that if found family tugs at your heartstrings, that's one of your favorite themes and tropes, then I think you've got to give Zenless a try. All of the factions of Zenless have really strong elements of found family within their story in some way. I really love all of the factions and how they each feel like their own kind of weird but happy family. The characters, I think, are really good overall in Zenless. And going on more about that, the twin proxies are my favorite protagonists of Hoyoverse games. One trait that makes the siblings different from the other Hoyo game protagonists is that, as of writing this at least, they are entirely non-combatants. And I love that. This is very different from other games. I like that they are weaker characters who support the agents as like the guy in the chair, quote unquote. I am cautiously opening to this changing, as I think it probably will, but I would rather they stay as physically weaker characters in universe. Sure, you can have them train so they can hold their own, but I don't want them taking down ethereals single-handedly. I like that they have to rely on the agents for their safety in dangerous situations. It helps a lot with the tension and their bonds with those characters. What also helps a lot is that the twins have a full backstory from the start, and they actually really want to keep those secrets from a lot of the characters. It's interesting to see the main characters be the usual friendly and goofy-natured people that you would expect from protagonists in these types of games, but also have that bit of apprehensiveness and guard that they put up around people. I also love that the main characters are siblings who actually stay together constantly. The sibling dynamic is very strong and is an important factor to why the story works for me. I love how every story event ends with you talking to your sibling. This is a great form of narrative repetition that really makes your sibling feel important to you as the main character, and it creates that warm, homey atmosphere that the game has with the proxies and their store. You really buy into how much they care about each other. The smaller world works really well with these protagonists, as we are one of the things that brings these characters together. But unlike how Genshin can feel, we aren't the only ones bringing characters together. There are some stories that have you play entirely from the perspective of characters other than the twins. It's nice, and it helps it feel like the entire world revolves around them. This game's smaller scope and its good execution of that has done so much towards cultivating a strong community within this world that you really get attached to, even just with the limited amount of characters that it has so far. To further talk about the world while revisiting the earlier point of its smaller scope, I really love the way it's been built. It's a great mix of urban with sci-fi elements. I especially love how the dangers of the Hollows is framed both as a normal occurrence that people are used to, while simultaneously being terrifying events. The balance of this is done well. You can go from a story about how a character was shaped by the horrible events of a Hollow, and then go see how people have used the effects of the Hollow to better their society and fight against it. It shows how humanity can stand strong together against horrific powers that they don't understand, but also how human greed will lead to people abusing those same powers when they learn to understand it. It's brought up some very cool ideas and compelling stories so far, and I'm really interested in seeing how it continues to move forward. And talking about characters in general now, Zenless has my favorite character designs, in terms of their individual designs themselves and the variety of types that we see. I'm not quite as harsh on Genshin's overall design philosophy as some people, but they can get very busy, repetitive, and very not fitting for the roles in universe, especially when it comes to the female characters. To me, Zenless does not really suffer from this. But it is important to keep in mind that Genshin and Star Rail have a lot more characters than Zenless, so keep that in mind. And if I didn't directly mention it, it's obvious, but maybe I should state it. Zenless is a lot younger than these other games, so obviously you can say that it's unfair to make comparisons, but you kind of have to talk about other games in order to make comparisons. So I still do my best to keep in mind that, yeah, obviously these games are older, they have more to them, but trying to keep them within a fair ballpark with what is comparable. What is undeniable is that Zenless has a wider scope of designs compared to the other games, honestly even if you compare their age. Zenless goes all the way with proper mechanical and anthropomorphized animal characters. We have normal humans, We have humans with mechanical body parts. We have Billy, who is a full-on robot. Characters like Jane, who just have elements of animals like a tail. And then characters like Ben, who are practically just the animal, but with human intelligence. The variety in character designs gives the cast so much room for being unique, memorable, and interesting. But, of course, kind of as an elephant in the room, when it comes to Zenless, it is true that Zenless is seriously lacking in its quantity of male characters. I cannot deny that. I will not try to deny that. It's a bit of an issue. If Genshin is around 1 to 2 male to female, I believe, Zenless, I would say, is about 1 to 3. We should have way more male characters. Completely agree with that. But at least the quality of said characters are really great in my opinion. I think the characters have great personalities, and most of their stories are at least decent, if not great, across the cast. And the last character-related point that I'll bring up for now is the game's mascot Bang Boos. I don't have a ton to say about them, nor do I really have any issue with them. Basically, if you don't know, they're chunky little robots that are clearly inspired by minions. I don't want to go too much into detail on them because it's not really necessary, and you'll find that out if you play or watch it. But I think they're cute more often than not, and usually I don't think they're annoying. I think they're a really nice part of the world and an important part of its identity, and I think they work well. Finally, now we're going to go into the true big gooner elephant in the room that I haven't quite touched on yet. If you don't care about this sort of discussion, you can skip ahead of it. It can be a hot button issue that a lot of people are very passionate about, or they don't really care about. I just want to give my thoughts around this specifically with Zenless. It is basically part of its identity and discourse. I will be simplifying things to the dichotomy of straight men and women for this topic, as this is how these things are usually discussed. But please know, I recognize the whole spectrum of people who enjoy hot fictional characters. Just with this topic, this is just kind of how the way it's discussed. It shouldn't be, but it is fitting for this general argument. Just going to be going on with this. Out of all the Hoyo games, this is the one most directly trying to be sexy. The character designs, the physics, and the camera put emphasis on the character's certain body parts. While what I just said before is certainly true, I don't think the game goes too far with this stuff. It's not quite equal, don't get me wrong, but in this game specifically, I don't really see these things as problematic. Just because there are more intentionally attractive characters does not automatically mean the loss of substance and that there is all there is to enjoy. It's just that. A game having fan service does not mean its sole purpose is to go all the way to getting people off. I do like the attractiveness of characters who appeal to me in that way, but I also like the characters who appeal to me in other ways, and don't appeal to my tastes, fetishes, etc. I don't think the characters that are meant to be sexy in this game are completely devalued or solely centered around that as characters. And before I mentioned how we have straight up robots and furries too. This wider scope of character designs can certainly play into the Gooner game allegations, but it's not like you have to view these characters in a fetishy way. Jane and Pulchra are certainly intended to be sexy and to appeal to specific fetishes. But you've also got characters like Soldier 11 and Corrin, who I feel don't have any sexualization to them. And it is important to note that they've also gone out of their way to make the male characters sexy as well, not just the female characters. Fan service for the traditional female audience is also present to a degree. There are less male than female characters. Again, not denying that. But we should not deny that most of them don't also appeal to fetishes or character tropes in some way, or also aren't meant to be sexy as well. That would be just incorrect. The male characters have dialogues, trailers, art, etc. that are meant to appeal to the viewer as an object of attraction as well. You would have to completely ignore Lycon and Hugo, especially. Did you see Lycon's trailer? With them also being a very intentional ship, which is appealing to people like yaoi fans. And another one, have you seen the butt buff they gave Vlad and the jiggles that his butt has too? Sorry, you can't act like this game is only appealing to straight men. Sorry. And I'm actually really like the fact that they did that, unironically. you can get things like wipeout screens and animations that show his butt off just like Jane and Vivian do. I won't try to argue this isn't a hornier game than the average Gatcha. It definitely is. But how do I feel overall? I really don't mind. I'll admit that I'm a degenerate who likes hot anime characters in games and things in general from time to time. But I also think it's kind of just funny to get a wipeout screen with a character's ass in focus. I don't mind if there's some more sexual connotation to the game when it comes to the adult characters, and when these aspects don't eclipse other elements of the game, which to me, it doesn't. I think saying Zenless is a Gooner game that you're practically meant to play with one hand, and that is exclusively intended for straight men is a huge exaggeration and to me is just incorrect. You don't need to find anything in this game sexy to enjoy it. The gameplay, the story, and the overall writing for the characters is pretty good to me. But if the sexualization of characters is something that you're particularly conscious and critical of, I can understand not wanting to play it. I'm not saying that if you're more sensitive to things like this, like if you really dislike fan service at all, I'm not saying you're invalid. I'm not saying anyone's oversensitive or anything like that. But I do think some people can fixate on it too much and treat any game with sexuality in it as harmful or completely empty of substance or quality by default. I personally do not think Zenless is doing any harm. But if this is something you don't like or don't mind, then I think this game will appeal to a wider scope of people through its characters and many of the points that I brought up as well, in my opinion. And for anyone coming back in, moving on from that topic now. While the models and animations do lend themselves to sexiness a lot of the time, it does not mean that they're not great from a general standpoint. The characters have so much personality come through in how they move. The characters feel far smoother to play than Genshin in my opinion. Animations are very fluid and there's a ton of detail put into them. And the extra energy and fluidity is especially notable in cutscenes. They are so much more expressive and dynamic than other Hoyoverse games, especially the Hoyoverse games, and I think Gacha games in general. Even if I think they can be a little over animated sometimes, but the style that they're going for is more exaggerated. So overall, I think it works. It's just such a tiny minor criticism that tiny little point could be a little over animated. But overall, I really like how the game looks. And the comic book cutscenes are also really great too, and again lend to the game's unique visual style and identity. When it comes to the models, Zenless is not stuck with the awfully small amount that Genshin and Stardew have. Every single character has their own model. This is a massive jump in effort and attention to detail from these developers. This deserves serious praise because sadly, constantly reusing models and refusing to make new ones is the norm for Hoyoverse. And when it comes to the visual presentation, I have to praise the wipeout screens too. They're a neat way to end fights, and it's fun to see what kind of shots you can get, especially when you actually try for it. The game is well designed around the characters' flashy, expressive, cool looking moves. The great animations for the characters really shine in the wipeouts, as they're actually meant to pose for them. Sometimes you can catch characters looking silly, and sometimes they can look really cool, but I think both are very much intentional. Please do not disrespect the quality of this game's models and animations, just because at points they make the characters look sexy too. And briefly, I'd like to mention that the soundtrack for this game is also very good. So coming back around to characters, I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts about kind of how they play. If there's any one character that I would recommend to pull the most, I think it's Astra. I feel she has the most value from a holistic perspective as a player. Most DPS characters with a great build can be a great DPS, even the A-class ones. But no one provides the quick assist style that she does, along with her very strong buffs, and the healing that, as of right now, in-game she is the only healer. She feels very impactful on a team and is really fun. If you want the strongest character, it's Miyabi. I've mentioned her before. Her damage is crazy. She has a big AoE, she groups enemies, she does ridiculous damage, really fast as well. She makes grinding basic stages for materials even faster than it already is. Want to know the technique? You just build up all of her shards on the first wave of enemies, use her big attack on the second wave, and they're all just going to die. These are the two characters that I would definitely recommend the most. And I can say, I already mentioned her before, my Zenless wife is Jane. I'll admit that I'm a total Jane simp. Call me a typical gooner if you want, she's really hot. And best boy is definitely Ben. I just really love him as a character. Out of all the characters in this game, I would just love to be friends with him. But I genuinely like pretty much all the characters. I think all three of the Hoyoverse games I mentioned, they especially started with very strong characters. Like with Genshin, I still think Mondstadt has my favorite group. I hope the good quality of likable and fun characters can continue as the game progresses, and that we continue to see great and varied designs. For anyone who keeps up with all the Hoyoverse games and looks at the data behind Gatcha games, you probably know that Zenless Zone Zero has not picked up traction quite like Genshin Impact and Star Rail have. It makes me a bit sad, honestly, that the Hoyoverse game that, to me, respects the player the most and has the most passionate and receptive game developers is the one with the least success. My feelings towards the developers are far more positive than most Gatcha games. I can feel their genuine desire to improve the game much more than just their desire to make money. They could be far stingier with stuff, but they don't. I feel like they've been far more receptive to the players than the other games. I do think they have a bit of a bad habit of overcorrecting, but I appreciate that they really do feel like they're listening, and they're really trying to change the game based on feedback. They at least try way harder, and I think do it faster than the Genshin devs. I think that should be an objective fact. On this topic, what would I like to see from Zenless? Right now, I would really like a way for players to borrow a character from their friends, like in Star Rail. I always think that's fun. It's another way that you can interact with and help your friends, and gets that more of that social aspect going. That's the main thing I can think of. Zenless Zone Zero is a really great free-to-play Gatcha game, and it's currently my favorite out of all Gatcha games, and specifically Hoyoverse. I stand by it successfully appealing well to both casual and hardcore gamers with its really fun gameplay. It has solid writing, an interesting setting, good world building, likable and well-designed characters, great animations, and executes on being a quote-unquote sexier game way better than most. I think it took the lessons learned from Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail and implemented them really well here to make a game that was exactly what I was looking for after being burnt out on those games and their individual flaws. I hope Zenless Zone Zero can continue to keep me engaged and having a really fun time. If anything that I said about the game sounds appealing to you, I highly recommend that you give it a try yourself and do your best to look past a lot of the exaggerations and overgeneralizations that people have made. With that, I'll be bringing this to a close. This ended up becoming my longest video on the channel so far, and there is still more things I could go into, honestly. If you'd like to hear more about Zenless from me, such as going in depth with my favorite characters, Jane, and doing analysis, stuff like that, please let me know. Also let me know if you'd like to hear more about other Gatcha games I've played. Two that I absolutely could talk about are Nikkei, which is hornier than this one, but I do think actually is a really good game overall, and Dokkan, Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, which I could go at length about with the love-hate relationship that we share. And I already made a video about Godzilla's Gatcha game Battle Lines. Please check that out if you want to hear more about another game right now. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed. And check out my website, Blog Under a Log, in the description, which has write-ups of pretty much all of my videos, and some articles that have not made it to YouTube, such as my manga chapter reviews of Bocchi the Rock, and some articles written by other people. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to financially support me, or as a free member, you can get updates on when I upload on my blog, and here on my YouTube channel.